Happy day, everyone. What's up, people? I say what's up, people, because our topic today is really about, being youthful, being young. And once again, we have Vinny Orsini as our guest. Uh, I said before, Vinny is still a very active person in the life of the youth ministry here in the CNMI. And so I know how Vinny works. I know how Vinny talks. I mean, I've in our meetings, youth meetings, I see that Vinny really is a very captivating person. That's why that's one of the reasons actually why we ask you to do the talk during our youth gathering, the youth day here in the diocese, because I really can sense the gusto, the eagerness, the zeal in your heart to really administer to the young. And so let's talk about the youth ministry here in the diocese. Are you satisfied with because I'm a fairly new priest here in the area. I don't know if it's no point of comparison on my part.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say that the youth empowerment movement really kicked off for me, in my perspective, about a couple of years ago when we were making a 5-year pastoral plan. And one of the main initiatives that the bishop and the community wanted was a more youth involvement. Mm-hmm. So from there, we started having plans for a island CNMI-wide youth day, youth camps, games, sports fests. And so these are just ways that different youth from the diocese can get involved. And if I seem like I'm involved in any way, it's because I'm supporting getting young people to come to the church and in ways that the church are outside the premise of the house of God, whether it's the gym or it's the park or things like that. I find that we have a really great team here in the CNMI, Don from Tinian, Sam and Tiava, and Auntie Francis, even at Cristo Rye, and Ed De La Cruz leading the charge with youth here. So we're trying to be creative. I think the only setback we've ever had was COVID. But even through that, we've had some youth gatherings and all COVID friendly. So we're being pushed in ways to lead the youth. I feel that in the whole world, the youth engagement in beliefs, not just in Christianity, but in Islam and Judaism too, are shrinking. And so if we can bring kids to the church, if we can even get a soul to come and participate, all of us are really happy to have that.
When listening to you, it's like the diocese has evolved or has grown from, in the youth ministry programs.
Yes.
We can say that programs have been developed, and the goal is really to get the attention of the young people, to get them to come and to get them to stay and to get them to get involved in the life of the church. And the youth ministry you have done is still doing a good job in promoting this ministry.
Definitely. And, since we can't really do things on a diocesan wide, we've seen some really awesome things in the parish level. Even Don, those guys in San Vicente are doing great things for their youth. And even in San Roque with Ryan and Angela, these small youth things. I find that the youth, it's hard to get them to come to a huge gathering of people, though that might be attractive to some. But it's really in these small settings, when you get to know a person individually and privately, then you can invite them to know God more. And I find that that's something that we as a diocese are growing in.
Yes.
Thank you, Vinny. I attest that Vinny has been really very helpful of the many efforts that we have been doing in the diocese. And you're correct, since COVID-19 pandemic hit us 2 years ago, we've really not done a lot in terms of a diocesan level activities, but every parish, each parish continues to do its best on how to engage the young people in their participation in the parish. Like last Thanksgiving, I spent Thanksgiving on the island of Tinian.
Wow.
And I arrived there a day before Thanksgiving, and Wednesday late afternoon, the youth there, they practiced their songs for Thanksgiving Day Mass, and it was heartwarming to see young people with musical instruments.
A lovely choir,
Lovely
right?
Yes.
choir.
Oh, yeah,
they
that's
they
again
they
choir.
sing
So
very
good.
well. I even whispered to one, okay, so you now overtake the manamko. and just seeing them actively participating in the liturgy, and even like the cantor who sang the responsorial psalm, was a young. So their liturgical involvement is one thing, and it's not only as a way of really giving good example to the other youth, but also I can sense that they're living out their faith, in many ways, and in that particular setting, through worship, through the Eucharist. Yeah.
Yes, I can attest to how the youth ministry has evolved over the years. I'm just maybe a couple of years over the limit here for the youth ministry
You're
portion
good.
of it. But back in my time, it was hard to express yourself, right? Your skills. We go back to vocation. What are your skills? What are your talents? Nowadays, self-expression is encouraged.
Right.
And then you find out these talents. Wow, she's a beautiful singer, or, just how they're able to contribute their skills and talents to praising, our faith and expressions of our faith. So back in our time, maybe we were more inhibited because we were more judgmental. I don't know. That's just how I felt back then. So of course you repressed or suppressed your skills, your talent, and to find now, folks like Vinny, they're so engaging. They really know how to warm a crowd and get them going, like you said, Father Melvin. It's really come a long way, and creativity has come out, and that's very important because we really need to allow people to express themselves. And then if you express yourself in this way, how can you help us proclaim the word of the Lord? Or in what way? And what is your nature? What is your gift? Is it singing? Is it through music? Is it through public speaking? Is it through engaging activities with the kids? It's really come a long way. The only, and like I said, it's evolving. So what we really need to focus on is getting more kids, attracting more kids, walking the streets, going into those homes. Because if we just keep entertaining the same people, are we really serving our purpose here? We need to expand. We need to get out of our comfort zone and go and reach out to other kids that probably don't know, because they're not as fortunate as others into accessing. So I think that's another way for us to really boost our youth ministry and get more kids involved, even if they're not active. But just the mere fact that you reached out to them and you've expressed the interest in them, that just may be that driving factor to get them to be a continued, continued member of the youth ministry, or more active participation from them.
You use the word access, Donna, and for me, it's important, for example, that our young people have access even to the consultative bodies in the church, in parishes. Say, for example, the pastoral council, which every parish has. And again, by thinking outside of the box, it's important that we need a young person in that body, in the parish council. In that way, they also feel that they are needed. They have access to, the power dynamics in the parish, how things are discussed, are decided, what are the priorities of its parish, and by giving them that space, by giving them that voice, we empower them and we make them feel that they are needed. It's not just the church of the Manamko, but it's a church for everyone, where the youth is also given a special attention.
Yes.
Before I go to the how we get them back or how we make them stay, on in your point of view as a young person, why do you think it is necessary for the youth ministry program in the diocese to be really give more emphasis or focus?
Wow. Wally, I think that young people today are more aware of things going on around them. And I feel that they're also more susceptible to things like, peer pressure and comparing themselves, especially through forms of social media. So I feel like we are looking for guidance. We're looking for things to create our life in a direction of where we can go to be happy, to find peace.
Yes.
And if we, the church, do not provide that outlet for them, I feel like we're gonna find it in other places, whether it's celebrities or idolatry or drugs or whatever addiction that they will perceive to be happiness for them. So by being visible and by being available and give them access to the church, we can give them access to true happiness, to true guidance, and lead them hopefully eventually to heaven.
Yes. Also, that's on the ministering to the young people. What about the role of the young in the diocese?
Oh man, there is a total difference in the mass when you hear a bunch of old people and then you hear that one voice of that young person.
Nice.
Be careful, be careful.
Oh, no. That's right.
Always put person first. Then.
Right.
That's true. That's true.
Tell us the difference.
It's there's a vibrancy in the voices, and at Christmas time, at Easter time, you hear the different voices of the church: the old, the young, the middle, right? And it's and it makes the full sound. It makes the full body of the church. So if we don't have the young, we're missing part of that body. We're missing the fresh skin on the beautiful face.
I like that because we really are composed. The church really is composed of both the young and the old. And so we have to also recognize the contribution of the youth, that they have something to give. They have something to offer. We have to provide them a place in the church where they can really give themselves and help and contribute to the life of the church.
Yeah, I like what Vinny said about there's a certain a special kind of feel when you hear their voices. I just kind of would add that yes, if we adults would help in again ministering to them, amplify those voices, not only in the actual singing, but in all aspects of parish life, that would be good. I recall one time, Sister Nina, our CCD diocesan director, so then they have this gathering. It says, I'll go into that gathering with the catechist or the youth. If I enter and then the first song that you're going to sing is Welcome to the Family, I'm going to step out because that has been the song for ages and ages. Right. Wow. So even the choice of music, what are the songs that the young people are really like? It's no longer as my repertoire, what I want, but giving them, like I said, at mass and sometimes some parishioners have difficulty accepting why is there a band? Why is there this musical instrument? Why? Why this and that, and this is something. It's noise for them. But let them be. Allow them.
Yes. Wow.
And
I like what you said, Bishop, regarding music. That is definitely one way that young people find a voice, and a lot of them have joined choirs. There's even youth choirs all around our diocese. For me personally, it was a song. It was a song called The last verse goes, see the face of Christ revealed in every person standing by your side. Remember how you loved us. That's the song. Okay. So when I heard that song, I felt like, oh, that's a nice song. So let me open the book and read all the lyrics. Yeah. When I got to the end, that verse really struck my heart. See the face of Christ revealed in every person standing by your side. gift to one another and temples of your love. I just think that's extraordinary that, you know, children might not be able to pay attention to the homilies. No offense. I know you guys have great homilies, but through things like song, like what Anna mentioned, or serving or opening doors for people, there's a connection that they can make. There's a connection that we can have. When I was a kid, my parents would always invite the priest after Mass to have dinner. And I can say that, you know, that was really one way that I personally had that access, I feel, to my churches, to have the priest. And even though I wasn't so Catholic when I was young, but their questions to me, they would probe my mind. Like, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to be? Oh, I don't really care for this. Why? And it was really these, you know, these priests like Father Jesse, Father Ray, Father Isaac, you know, who really helped shape my understanding of what the church is. That
I'm gonna tell Father Charlie you serve
Father Charlie as well.
And you don't mention his name.
Oh yes, Father Charlie, so much, and he's quick too with jokes and comebacks. So,
what do you mean by not so Catholic? That caught my attention.
Oh man, you know I think that. Okay, I think that every person, you know, in the world, Catholics included, goes through like a period of doubt. And I think it's on a period of rebellion, you know, just because for me, when I was raised, we were going to church my whole life. You know, my mom and my dad, they would push us. And I think when I became a teenager, I just felt so like, why? What is this for? And then my parents didn't give me the answers that I was looking for. So they just said, don't ask her, don't answer, you know, just come. So when they would invite these, you know, priests over and we'd have dinner, that's when I could explore my faith. That's when I could answer questions, because that's when they can answer my questions that I would maybe be ashamed to ask in front of my classmates in a CCD or in front of a crowd. I find that that those intimate connections, those intimate questions, even at an informal setting like a dinner or just some coffee, those are very impactful for young people.
Because you have to start somewhere, and that is where you're, you know, starting your evolution, you know, in terms of faith. And so be it. You know, if young people are attracted to music, maybe that's how they are starting to get, you know, into the life of the church. You know, and these are all areas that we can probably consider in trying to get them back into the life of the church. So the hard question now is this: how do we get them really? How do we get them back into the life of the church and have them stay also and enjoy being and staying in the church?
Why are you looking at me?
We're looking to you. But it's interesting you should bring that up. Vinny's brought up a lot of, you know, good points, especially about making that connection. Because as youth, we have to go to church, right? Mm-hmm. We have to go to latrina, it's CCD, Sunday school, whatever you call it, in order to receive First Holy Communion. Mm. And then our next sacrament will be confirmation. So something to think about. There's a gap there. Let's say you're second grade up to 10th, 11th grade. There's that void there. What happens to the child in between? What do we expect of them? Is it the parent forcing us? I believe I brought that up also in a previous episode. My parents, go to church or you're grounded. That was it. Like he said, don't question because there's no answer. You just go. So when we talk about youth, what is going to make them want to come? Right. Not force them to come or if you don't go, you're not going to receive confirmation. Because after confirmation, what happens to them? Most likely they don't come back until they're going to baptize their child or what have you, or get married. Or so those voids, we need to figure out how can we engage, keep them engaged. Faith is not tangible. Mm-hmm. We cannot touch it like we can other things or vices that he had alluded to earlier. It comes from within. How does it come from within? It has to be brought in. Who's there to do it to us? Who's there to enlighten us? So that's what makes it more complicated. For you in the ministry. How will you
True.
be able to keep us engaged so that we don't, or
Right.
times of questioning faith or doubting our faith, we all had those moments.
Right.
How can we continue to keep the youth engaged, involved, interested in their
Right.
faith?
Yeah, one thing I learned is that the model of faith education is really to start with adult faith education or formation. And why is that? Because if the youth, the young adult, see the adults continue to learn about their faith, that in itself is already a good model. So Donna brought a very good point about the gap, the interval from First Holy Communion to confirmation. And I think what is missing there also is that in every household, if children see their parents, the elders, continue to learn about their faith, then it's a lot easier for them to say, oh, I need to continue. In that gap, I also have to do something. Because if that model, if there is no adult faith formation, then it's difficult for the young to follow, because you talk about modeling, you talk about setting a good example. So I gave that some thought, and truly I think that's an area that we need to develop, right? How many of our adults, let's say parents, continue to really have an active desire to learn more about their faith, right? And if that is missing in a household, in a family, it's difficult to encourage the youth to say, boy, go fund to the doctrina, even though it will be 3 years from now before you will receive confirmation, right? Because there are classes in between. But again, very few people attend those doctrinas because they're going to wait until it's part already of the confirmation program. Now, what can we priests do to encourage them? I'll let Father Melvin speak, and then I'll go next.
Yeah, I really think that the buck should stop at where the head is. I mean, the pastors, the priests are the major. They are the prime movers of the parish. They're the ones directing. He's the conductor. He's the one holding the baton, holding the stick. Waving his hands into the air. So if one area is not working, he should be the one to recognize it. If we want to create an active youth ministry in the parish, the pastor should really put his hand on the ministry. He should have a sincere desire and love for the young. Because I've seen a lot of churches that and a lot of priests that they don't care about the youth ministry. Their priority is something else. And if we do that, we're not giving justice to the body of Christ. If we want to look at it that way, because we're only focusing on the head, we're not focusing on the limbs. So the pastor should be the prime mover of every activities in every activity in the church, in the parish. And youth ministry should be given a special notice also. They have roles. They are CCD teachers, of course, but they depend on the pastors. Youth ministers, they depend on the pastors. So if the pastor says, well, we have no budget for that,
I like what you said about the budget. I was going to say that if we truly see the importance, the priority in youth ministry, then our resources should go towards that priority.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, each pastor is required, not just encouraged, but required to submit a budget like any institution, right? And then the budget, will be a guide on what would be the foreseen expenses for the year. And usually when we have meetings, I would really emphasize that we should shift our focus from renovating the church to renovating the people of God.
Right.
Wow. Well
Spend more on the programs, right? And, if, for example, you spend thousands of dollars for beautification, buying new whatever, unless there's really a need, like, for maintenance and all of that. That's important too. But I think our shift should be on building people, and youth ministry is such an important aspect of our ministry, and so our resources should go towards that.
Right.
And I believe that's one way, because we, the pastors, we're the ones who would again guide the members of the council and prioritize. Okay, what we go next? Father Melvin should get a new car. No.
Yes.
No.
Like that.
Or the Mamali should go retreat in Rhoda instead of staying on Saipan. It says, no. No. But if you say, okay, we budget like X amount of dollars for youth activities, inviting guests to come in and for youth camp and get resources, books and all of that. And I think that's important, because that would be a way for us to be concrete with what our priorities are.
I really appreciate your statements about having the priests be involved in the youth. I find that so comforting and relieving to hear. The recent studies show that more and more families grow up without fathers. So I think the number now is about 20% of of children grow up with moms and dads. So when we ask people to think of God as your father, what father? Who's a father?
Right.
And so it's so important, especially at this time, to have good priests like yourselves, people who we can call father for people who may not have them. And I find in my own life, even though I went through spiritual deserts and, moments of doubt, I find that just having that constant reminders, whether it's in a cross in a car or whether it's a picture of Mama Mary in a bedroom, just having that constant reminder of faith growing up really grounded me, so that when I entered my periods of trials and tribulations, right? Death in your family, or maybe deep thoughts or career choices, that foundation that, your priests or your family have set for you are enough to guide you and help you through it. I find that, especially with young kids, and me and Donna can attest to this, we don't see any change right away. Right? It's like seeds in the ground, you're planting them and they won't bear fruit until 20 years later. So I find that sometimes when I feel bad about not making such a big impact with my CCD class, or when I feel moments of doubt, like, I don't know how else to help them, I just remember to myself, there's all these adults who are so engaged in their faith right now were once kids 20 years ago. Even though I won't see the impact right now of young people going to church, I hope that these young people that we're touching 20 years from now, they're going to be the ones singing and leading the choir. Going around.
Yes.
That's always the hope. And, unfortunately, there are families that are not complete. They don't have the parents, the mother, father to lead the way, to be active in our faith and all our teachings. But we have the outreach. We have the priests. Maybe if you can't simply give individual attention to everybody, but you can support those that are under you to help them do that. Your mere support is what they need in order to make things possible. And it goes back to our youth ministers or our youth leaders. They can be the figure. They are not the mother or the father, but they are the ones, like Vinny said, he woke up in a complete family environment. He had the faith there. It was there. Some kids don't, and it's not to say they cannot just because it's not in their home. It's up to us to find ways to bring them in, to get them thinking, to let them know there is that care. There is something to believe in. I'll always go back to that and how faith is so important to us, especially nowadays during this pandemic, during these trials and tribulations we have here. We all need something to believe in, something greater than us, something that transcends. We need to feel that from within. It's not necessarily to be able to touch it and know for sure that that support is there. It's something from within. It's something that gets us up in the morning. It's something that brings us to our knees to pray. We are not perfect. I always say I am not perfect. That's why I'm here. If I was perfect, I don't need any of this. I do not need faith. I've surpassed all that, right? But hats off to somebody who has achieved that. I mean, that's why we're all here.
Correct.
Because we all have those. We're all sinners. We're all looking for that perfection in this imperfect world, in our imperfect lives. It's just a matter of us reaching out to our youth,
Right.
bringing them back, or not even bringing them in. Because once the manamku, the mid-umku, once we're gone, who's going to sustain the church for us? We need to bring them in, allow them, like Bishop, you said in an article I read, you cannot change the doctrine. You cannot, but maybe you can find ways. How can we make it up to date and relevant today? We're not changing doctrine. We're trying to attract, because if we stick to Old Testament, New Testament, we can't. We need to attract people to come in. We've got the old schoolers that are here and we go, no, it's like this, like this. We need to not change the interpretation, but
open it
up.
Yes,
Be creative in how it is spread, how the news is spread to everybody. We need to update it, not change it.
New expression, new ways of doing things, more relevant. One of the words that caught my attention, that's what I try to do. Like when you speak, I pay attention, budget, but you use the word transcend. I said, okay, I'm going to jump into that. Because I think when we talk about faith of our youth, manamko, and I learned a new word, mid-namko.
I love that word.
Yeah. There's a dynamics of what we see in the imminent right now, the concrete things, and we would be able to see the connection by having in the back of our mind what is transcendent. So the relationship between the imminent and the transcendent, finding meaning in the immediate, right? Bring them to doctrina, let them be involved in the ministry, the choir, giving time for them, and giving them just as lots of opportunities to interact, and for us priests to prioritize them. And as you said, maybe 20 years later, they would come back. Yes. So there's always this, a reminder that, never to lose sight that, whatever we do right now, this will have tremendous effects, in the future. And if we're able to transcend what's imminent, what's immediate, what is right now. I don't know, philosopher Mel.
No, I'm not a philosopher. Far from it. Philosopher, baby. But I'm not a philosopher. Yeah, well, I would say that the heaviest burden lies on the priest. But
really?
in reality, it's everybody's role, really.
Sure.
From the core or the parish councils. Without the support of the council, the manamku in the church and the mid-namku in the church, without their support, the youth ministry in the parish would not flourish. And I've seen this really at work in one of the churches here. I saw the dynamic in that church, that everybody is really supporting everybody. The older ones are the ones really sustaining the youth ministry. And I saw that as something that is very inspiring. And I hope that dynamic can also be learned by other parish. Of course, every parish has its own dynamic and identity, but at least in that church, I saw it, and it's working. It's working very well. So the dynamics of and the parents too are very supportive. So parents have a role in really bringing the youth ministry in the parish and in the diocese alive and really active and working and productive too. So if we can tap on all these, on all these people who are influential in the life of the young, from the pastor to the core or parish council that we have, to the parents and to the general parishioners also. That would be really an awesome thing to have.
I think it's important also to, like you said, you have to change the the perspective of those who are in charge at the church. Some are very one-track minded. It must be this way. This is how it's done here. It's been like this for 20 years since I've been here. Wow, 20 years? That's a long time.
Yes.
Can we get more participation? Why is there less engagement here? What is happening? You know, we need to diversify. We've become much more diverse over the years. There's no doubt about that. Even in the style of teaching our kids and how they learn. Nowadays, technology is number one. They have the phone, they have the apps, they've got the headphones. So how can we engage kids nowadays? They're so tech savvy. Maybe that's one thing we can consider as an outlet for, youth ministry. How can we keep them engaged at home when they're stuck inside during this pandemic? What's another way? We can't bring them in. We can't do certain things at this time. What's another way? And I know Vinny agrees. This is our style of teaching now. And at least they're already exposed to this concept. So you don't even have to start from scratch when you're teaching them. They already know. Kids are tech driven nowadays. It's all by the device. All we have to do is create activities or programs virtually, get on Zoom, do some kind of Zoom event. I'm not trying to promote Zoom, but the virtual environment. Get into the virtual environment. If that's how we're going to keep the youth ministry engaged, the kids engaged, bring them in, let's try that. There's always a way to get kids and, bring them in. It's a matter of keeping them in that.
Well, I'd like to give some tips to parents that might be useful for
that'd
them
be awesome.
in engaging their children. I know that a good shepherds smell like the sheep, right? So if all the sheep are online, then how can we be like that? I want parents to know that, media apps have algorithms, right? So the more things that you like, the more they're going to feed you that content.
Right.
So if parents can say, I need you to, before you use your device, before you go on Instagram, I need you to like something about the church. When the kids start liking that, and then, okay, now you continue to do other things, those church things are going to pop up.
Yes.
And pretty soon these words of wisdom, these inspirational quotes are going to be around the kid. And then when the kid's on the device much later, they already have enough algorithm to immerse themselves.
Yeah.
Our podcast would be in that.
I would love
that.
So. For young kids, what I can see in my nieces and nephews is they really love dressing up for church. So whether it's little kids, they just love their dresses. They want to show it off. They cannot receive communion, but they just love to walk down the aisle. That's a great way. When I was after Holy Communion and before confirmation, I'd love to attend the Good Friday walks up Mount Tapochao, and even though I'm walking, I can hear the prayer. I can hear the Stations of the Cross. So just those little fun exposures, even how small of an increment you might think it is to their lives of these kids, they look forward to it. I'm so happy we had the luau for December 8th.
I didn't see you.
Oh, man.
Just kidding.
But you could hear me, I think.
All right.
Check the 787 pictures at Mount.
Yes. So when we turned off the lights in the church, I didn't hear any of the kids talking, but when the lights were turned off and the candles were on, I could hear the two little boys behind me go, wow.
Yes.
And that moment must have made an impact for them. So I feel like there's these little moments that we can attach to these kids to get them to create that lifelong relationship with God that we eventually want for them.
Very good. Yeah.
Youth ministry is really a challenge, but this is something that we are not blind. We see the things where we can still improve, the areas that need to be developed, programs that need to be done. And hopefully with the involvement of all our parishioners, all our pastors, and all the priests in the diocese, then with, of course, the
blessing of
ultimate,
the bishop.
the blessing of the bishop, because it's his baby, really, the bishop's baby. It's part of the 5-year plan. And if we can really bring it into the center stage, the youth ministry, then we're going to really have a very vibrant church. So thank you very much, Vinny, for spending your time with us. You're sharing your thoughts, your ideas about the youth ministry. We're hoping that through this conversation, once again, we're able to inspire a lot of people to become better Catholics.